Hey everyone, welcome to this week's Tech Bites Takeover, or as I like to call it, Between Two Geese. We're talking from announcements to action. I'm Tyler Jurgens, Technical Product Marketing Manager here at Veeam, and alongside me is the famous Matt Crape. Matt, why don't you introduce ourselves? Tell us what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. It feels like it's been a while since we did one of these, although it was last month. Scheduling is hard sometimes. But yeah, we're back here again today. I work alongside Tyler. We both work in product marketing here at Veeam, and we're super excited to talk about all things V13. So in case you missed it yesterday, there's a huge launch event, and we're going to be double clicking onto that, diving into some of the nuances that maybe you missed it if you were watching it live, or maybe you're here for the recap. Either way, we're here to help you kind of decipher what was actually going on in there. As always, feel free to leave comments, ask questions. We'll try to get to as many as we can as we're going through this. But hey, this is actually live, so forgive us if we don't actually have time to actually reach out there, read the questions, so forth. But we do our best. So what we actually have on tap this edition, we're going to talk about 3 settings that you can enable right off the hop to make your V13 experience just really pop, give you a great, fantastic first experience. We've got 2 thoughts from the community that we've pulled fresh off the launch. One news story, which is really going to be the GA announcement that we all saw yesterday. And lastly, one Veeam community spotlight segment. We wanted to pull some stuff from the community that really kind of stood out to us, a little bit of a nod towards what's going on out there. And then at the end of the day, we want to leave you with 0 reasons for actually joining us to watch here. So, I mean, with all of that out of the way, Tyler, you kind of teed it up there. We're talking about from announcement to action. We saw a lot of stuff go on yesterday at the launch event. So why don't we start off with that?
Absolutely, Matt. So we had our global launch event yesterday. It was a fantastic event. Both Matt and I were even moderators at that event, and we tried to get through as many questions as we could, but some of the questions we just couldn't get to in time. So if you have a question, I invite you to ask us live. Let's bring them forward. Maybe Matt and I can answer them here. But really, what we talked about was a bit of, the global launch, and then there was a big news announcement here with the security.ai pending acquisition. Matt, why don't you tee us up a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So this was announced earlier, this month, the intent to acquire Security AI by Veeam. We are still in what we call the quiet period, so we can't actually talk a whole heck of a lot about it right now, unfortunately. And I say that if you do have questions, unfortunately, we can't answer much in the way of that now. But if you did catch the show yesterday or you missed it, there was a fantastic session on there about security AI, what they're doing today. And it really is some mind-blowing stuff. There's a lot that can be done and really opens up the eyes to potential possibilities down the road. So all that say, sorry, we can't go too far down into that conversation right now, but stay tuned. There's going to be a lot of news around that. Now, speaking of AI, Veeam Intelligence also had a lot of spotlight moments at the keynote yesterday. I think top of mind for a lot of folks, and there was a sneak preview about this way back at VeeamON back in April around the malware deep analysis agent. I know that was shown on stage, a lot of great reception around that, and we thought, hey, you know what? That might be something we might want to cover a little bit later on here. Tyler, what else do we want to cover here?
Yeah, so we talked, a little bit of malware deep analysis agent, a bit about the AI in general, and even the universal hypervisor API, which I think is going to be a pretty great new feature that we're bringing in, and that should really help unlock a lot of integrations with a lot of different hypervisors across the board. But Matt, why don't we jump into a bit of that malware deep analysis agent? Let's give our viewers a bit of a sneak peek here.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is some new functionality that was introduced as part of V13. Tyler's actually the master at this. So Tyler, why don't you walk us through what this is and really why would folks care about this?
Oh, absolutely, Matt. So as you can see here, we've got a bit of a pre-canned demo. It's done this way because we just have so much content to present to you today that we can't get through everything. So we're going to speed through a bit of this. So we've got the malware deep analysis. So when you're taking a look at your environment, you might see that you got a few anomalies here. And what do you do next? And that can be a question that you're just not sure how to answer. So let's dive into a bit of the Veeam intelligence. Let's get a question in there and let's start finding out what comes next. So, we have a bit of the information. We've given it a question. Hey, give me the information on that suspicious activity. It's spit it out here. You can see we've got a bunch of suspicious restore points being identified. And we want to get some better information. Like, can you help assist in finding the right restore point for my machine that is generating these alerts? And we'll see here that it does give us some information and tells us the last clean restore point. So incidentally, that was the day before I started injecting a bunch of, suspicious files here to try to get some alerts to generate. And the fun part about this is, generating alerts in a safe manner that isn't going to infect my lab entirely. So I created a few files that had some, very suspicious and extensions on them. I created a bunch of encrypted data. I just really wanted to trigger this. So you can see that it had brought up the creation time of the last known good restore point the day before I started doing this. But I really am concerned about what's going on with my jump point, my jump box here. And I want to see the blast radius. So you can see it will tell me here, giving me a bit of information right from Veeam Intelligence on what's going on. Matt, was there anything you thought was super cool about this demo?
What I really love about everything Veeam Intelligence related is the fact that you just talk to it using regular language. You don't need to be a subject matter expert. You don't need to know deep technical terms. And sometimes you don't even know or need to know what the information is that you're looking for. You're able to talk to it just like you were a coworker to start figuring out, well, tell me a bit more about this. Can you actually double down on that a little bit more? And what does this mean? So being able to have all of that information at your fingertips, to me, is huge. And I love this use case of being able to do that whole deep dive analysis. If there is a malware event, what do I need to know about it? So Tyler, I see we got some results back here. What exactly are we looking at?
So here we're looking at trying to find what the latest clean restore points. So you can see that it tells me the blast radius. I've got 44 restore points in total for this machine. 18 are clean, 26 are suspicious and potentially unsafe. So if we want to be absolutely sure, you can see earlier in the demo, it told me exactly where we need to go to find out the rest of that. And that's about it for our demo here there. Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit, what were some of the questions that were commonly being asked?
Oh, absolutely. So as Tyler mentioned, we were doing some of the live Q&A moderation, and we were getting a lot of great questions that were coming through. Lots of questions around functionality, some roadmap style questions. But I think probably the most prominent question that we got was the interest around the Veeam software appliance. If you're not familiar with it, it was launched back in September. It's a pre-hardened, pre-packaged, pre-configured VBR instance running on a hardened Linux-based appliance. And it has been extremely popular for many, many different reasons. But the number one question we had was around conversion, going from the Windows-based installation to the Linux-based installation. So Tyler, I see you've got the transition page up here. As it is today, the tool is not yet available. It's not publicly available yet. PM, R&D, there's lots of work going into this, making sure that we're crossing all our T's, dotting all the I's to provide, the experience that Veeam is known for. We want things to be rock solid right out of the gate. So what we have here is a page where you can actually go there and sign up to be notified. A, when is the tool available? And B, this might be a good opportunity for support, for R&D, for those folks to actually reach out to select customers proactively as part of a pilot project. So if that's something that you're interested in, put your name in there. Not everyone will be selected for that pilot project, but this is a first step in order to actually be notified as far as, hey, you know what, you want to get upgraded, or rather you want to migrate to the VSA, the Veeam software appliance, the tool is available now. Tyler, anything else to add to that?
Not really. I mean, you can get some conversions. You'll have people reaching out to you when you fill this out. If you are interested, you'll have people reach out and they will help guide you through that conversion process. So we want to, like Matt said, we want to get all the T's crossed and the I's dotted to make sure that when we do open this up publicly, you have that smooth, consistent experience that you expect from Veeam. So Matt here, um, why don't we move on to the next thing here? We've got, maybe we have a bit of a demo.
Yep.
Is that a good idea?
Absolutely. We're going to be a little bit demo heavy this time, so hopefully that's all right for everyone watching. So Tyler, what do you have up here? This looks like it is an email that you printed a PDF, but there's lots of numbers and color coding on there. So what are we looking at?
There is a lot of numbers in color coding, Matt. We've got the AI coffee report, what we like nicknaming the AI coffee report. It's the Data Resilience Daily Summary Report. This is an AI generated report. They'll give you a lot of that information right at a glance for you to be able to know what was going on with your environment the previous day. It tells you all the different sessions, your successes, your warnings, your errors. We've got a few errors here, so maybe we need to dig into that, find out what's going on. And it gives us a bit of the information a little further down. Hey, I wasn't able to connect to the guest agent. It'll tell you, a bit of a summary of what's going on, and it'll give you a link. And that link will often refer you to a help center article or maybe a forum post or something that gives you that information. Again, this is all AI generated, so you might get, as better information comes up, the AI will find it and link it to you.
What I really love about this is it takes the think work, the guesswork out of trying to decide what do you need to care about, right? Veeam Intelligence is able to go in there and basically figure out these are the anomalies, these are the warnings, these are the failures. Here is what you really need to be focusing on. Now, this is super easy to enable, and we'll get to that in a moment. But Tyler, I got a question for you. It's coming in from YouTube. So this is actually from Chris. He's asking, is there any ATA on allowing the Veeam software appliance to be used as Cloud Connect target? Now, I know Cloud Connect's your jam, so I was wondering, is there an answer you could give Chris today?
So you can absolutely use Cloud Connect with Windows version of v13 today. So you can upgrade your Cloud Connect environment as it exists today, get that full Cloud Connect experience. Now, you notice I kind of avoided, because we're not going to really be able to give you an exact ETA of when it is coming for the VSA, but it's on the truck. It's a highly demanded feature, and we are going to be able to get that to you as soon as we can. Unfortunately, I don't have an exact ETA for you. I'm sorry, Chris. Send me an angry email, but I don't have anything better to tell you there. But what we can do is you can deploy Linux based Veeam infrastructure appliances for your Cloud Connect gateway. So you can prepare to get on board with the entire Linux experience today. Replace those Windows gateways with Linux gateways. You've been able to do the Linux proxies for a while now. You can use the Veeam infrastructure appliance for that as well. You can do the Veeam hardened repository for all your repositories. So we give you almost everything you need to switch completely to Linux. The VSA will come soon. Matt, was there another question in there?
There is. There's a question here from Luis, and it basically revolves around what we're just covering off there. And full disclosure, we've got a little bit of a lag between this being live and when it's actually being broadcast out. So if you see me and Tyler taking a minute or two to get to your question, that's why. But the question really comes down to converting from the V12 Windows version into the Linux appliance. And Luis, that's basically what we just covered. The tool is not available today, but we are going to be rolling that out very shortly in the near future. There's a page that you can sign up to be notified, to be added to the list. So expect that in the near future. It's not there today. Now, one thing that we didn't touch on that I think is worth bringing up right now is in order to migrate from Windows to Linux, you'll actually need to make sure that you're running on Windows 13.0.1, so the Veeam backup replication. So I say that in the sense of there's no reason really to hold off on upgrading to 13.0.1 because that will be a requirement for converting to the Veeam software appliance.
It's like you read my mind, Matt, because I was thinking, man, we got to tell them they have to upgrade to 1301 first, and you were in lockstep with me there. So yeah, we've got this AI coffee report here. Matt, should I show them where we can enable that?
Absolutely, because I think that's really where the true power of this comes in. Well, I'm not going to steal your thunder, but it's probably going to be a lot simpler than folks are expecting.
Absolutely. So just in the options here, let's jump over to email settings. You got to get your mail enabled here, which is a great way to get those notifications and alerts anyways. But you drive down here to the bottom and one simple check mark, and it gives you that AI powered summary of all your backup activities right there. And you get that email every day right away, gives you all the information you need that we already showed you. So it's one of the first features I turned on. And Matt, I think that goes back to what are the three things we want to show people to get started with V13 and how can they, get the most out of their experience right off the bat?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a great place to start. Now, I think one of the next features that we should show is probably one of the most, exciting features that folks have been anticipating, which is a high availability. So this is being introduced. It's only available in the Veeam software appliance, and there's some underlying architectural issues as to why that is, which won't go into now because, frankly, we don't have the time for that. But if that's something of interest, feel free to drop a comment in here, and we'll consider it for a future episode, maybe a bit more of a deeper dive on high availability. But Tyler, why don't you show us how you can actually get that set up so folks who are running this in the lab environment, testing it out, kicking the tires, can start playing around with it?
Absolutely, Matt. And one thing before I jump there, I showed this briefly on the screen for that AI coffee report. You do have to switch your Veeam Intelligence to advanced mode, and that will give you all those extra features. So it's easy to do right under that Veeam Intelligence tab. But let's jump over. Let's show you that high availability, and really, right away, you just have to right click on your Veeam software appliance inside that backup infrastructure under the Linux tab, because it is a Linux-based appliance, and create that HA cluster. So you have to enable host administrator approval. So we're going to do that. You jump over into your host management console here. Let's make sure I have it up. We have this here. Let's jump in. We got the MFA. Let me hope I've got that MFA code handy.
Now, while you're doing that, once again, this kind of exemplifies the security that is built into the Veeam software appliance, right? It's designed with a real secure by default approach because things like high availability, you might be saying, why does that require some, extra approvals? Well, if you think about it, you're taking a copy of like your config database, all the ongoings on of your backup infrastructure, and you're sending it to another location. You want to make sure that that's an approved process and that somebody's not just going out and doing it on their own. So this is important for A, approvals, but B, it also creates that audit trail in case you ever need to go back and figure out when was this actually enabled, who enabled it, and you can start digging around what was the purpose, was this sanctioned, and so forth. And Tyler, just while you're dealing with that, I know I can't type and talk. I'll answer a question coming in from Jason on LinkedIn around the migration path. So yes, Windows V12 will need to be upgraded to V13 on Windows. That will be a prerequisite for the conversion to the Veeam software appliance. So it's going to be a 13 to 13 migration. So continue on here, Tyler.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to show that after I approve that in that host management console there under the VeeamSO account, I can now come back to my console here for Veeam Backup Replication and then try to enable HA again. And I'm started to present with that wizard. So I just enter my cluster DNS address, my virtual IP address for the cluster, and start working through everything on this next finish wizard. Again, we're not going to set everything up here right away in this episode, but like Matt said, if you want to see it live, maybe Matt and I can do that on one of the next Between Two Geese episodes. So Matt, was there another demo we needed to go through here?
Absolutely. Once again, this is a small, simple checkbox, but I think it really opens the door to up-leveling your security, and that's the proactive investigation. So this may have flown under the radar for a lot of folks because it might sound small, but it really unlocks some key capabilities. So Tyler, why don't you walk us through that?
Yeah, and this is one of the things that I really liked about the new V13 experience is that additional malware detection. So I walked you through, I showed you earlier, I had set up a few files that were looking very suspicious, had some encryption extensions to the file name, so it looks like my machine was starting to get ransomware. And I wanted to do that on purpose to see what would happen. So when I went in here, I cranked the encryption detection to extreme. And I also want to see what would happen with those encrypted files. Now here, all I simply did was checked off this proactive investigation. And that was a fascinating experience for me because when I did that, every time Veeam would detect that my machine had possibly encrypted files going on, it would do the signature-based scan. And I was trying to figure out actually for a quick second, hey, why am I not seeing that I have some ransomware detection here, not just encrypted data, but like actual ransomware files? And that was because if you look into the history of this, we see the potential malware activity detected, and then we also see a proactive malware scan was completed for that machine. And you can see it's completed. I actually found that no threats were found because I didn't actually throw an encrypted ransomware file onto my machine. I just made it look like something happened, and Veeam was able to detect that and call that out. So I thought that was great. And you can even have Veeam do through those settings I showed you earlier, mark it as clean. So I wouldn't have had to actually see anything else. Mark the backup as clean. If no threats are detected, it'd be like, hey, this restore point is actually useful for you going forward. So Matt, there might be an extra special question that just came in from one of our audience members. Why don't you cover that?
An extra special question.
Or a
Well,
comment, maybe.
I see a comment. Big shout out to Chris Spencer. Love the geese takeover. Thank you, Chris. We appreciate the support and the encouragement. So thank you for that. Now, speaking of extras and, extra special stuff, I'm going to throw in, I know we said 3 features that we like to talk about. I'm going to throw in the 4th because we'd be remiss if we didn't mention this. And that's basically the SAML single sign-on integration that was introduced, as part of the Veeam software appliance, now part of the Windows VBR as well. Why do I like this so much? Well, as Tyler can attest to, we use the lab a lot, and actually just having that single sign-on makes things easier. It really unlocks so many capabilities at the enterprise level because you can start using this for enhanced RBAC, creating consistent experiences, which once again, Tyler and I could talk at length to that. If that's of interest, drop a comment in here. We'll queue it up for a future episode, maybe a little bit of a use case. But Tyler, why don't you walk us through what it looks like on the Veeam side of things as far as setting up SSO and SAML?
Absolutely, Matt. So we've got this other VBR that we've been using for a while in the lab, and surprise, surprise, we have multiple that we have just for the different experiences that we want to show. But here, once you've set up SSO, you click a simple button, sign in with SSO, and you're presented with this. So it gives you that quick glance to have this, and it'll actually prompt you for the MFA because when you have MFA built in with your SAML provider, it's going to give you that MFA prompt. So when you're in your VBR, it's a really quick setting here. You jump into your users and roles, and you go over to your identity provider, and you enable your SAML authentication. And if this is something you want to see us walk through live again, give us a shout out. We'll maybe do this on a future Between Two Geese episode to give you that full-fledged experience because it's, like Matt said, one of his favorite features, one of my favorite features, because once you have it enabled, logging in, you're not jumping back to your password manager, trying to find your passwords for the different environments. You have it already set up, and you can just click out of a button, log in. So, Matt, you actually did the setup on that other VBR. How hard was that?
Oh, I mean, once you realize, where you need to go within, in our case, we used Azure and Entra ID. It's actually super straightforward, right? And something I do want to touch on. I know we're going on a little bit of a tangent here, but that's what you and I do when we get together and start talking. But one thing I do want to shout out is you mentioned, streamlining what the MFA experience looks like. Now, what's really key about that is it's not just the MFA as well. It's things like streamlining your conditional access policies, right? Which, we could back those up using intra-ID backup within Veeam Backup Replication or even Veeam Data Cloud. So it's about providing that consistent experience. So you've got the same user accounts, you're able to build groups off that, the enhanced RBAC, the conditional access policies, can even go a step further and back all of that up in intra-ID using, Veeam Backup for intra-ID. So there's really this big story here that you can create and you can start to connect the dots around that. So it might sound like a small feature, but especially in larger enterprises and organizations, it's huge, right? It really streamlines a lot of things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And combine that with that enhanced RBAC, now you can really give your team the keys to the kingdom of what they need to access without recreating and giving them different passwords every time.
Yeah. Yeah, and define least privilege access at group level. So it's beautiful that way. Now let's
Absolutely.
shift gears a little bit. We've been talking, or we've been getting a lot of questions about the Veeam software appliance. That's why we've been talking about it a lot. And we want to address one of probably the most common questions we hear about from a technical standpoint, which comes along to basically, are we able to put iSCSI on there? Oh, Tyler, I see. Sorry, you brought up the upgrade center. Why don't you talk that quickly here?
Absolutely. So yeah, before you jumped into the iSCSI, it's great story there. I want to show everybody where you can go to get more information on that upgrade center. And very fortunate for us, this was updated today by the famous Ricketron. So you've got all the most accurate, up-to-date information right at your fingertips. So, Matt, you brought up that iSCSI question. Why don't we bring up a little bit of, people want this? What do you do and what is it all about? Matt, you're a little more up to speed on it. Why don't you tell us?
Yeah, absolutely. So the question we commonly see, whether it's through a webinar, through an event like this, through a global event, is, hey, can I use iSCSI as part of the Veeam software appliance or the Veeam infrastructure appliance? And I want to take a moment to sort of address that. So it's a little bit of a two-pronged question because we usually ask why, and it's going to be one of two answers. The first answer is somebody will say, I want to attach a LUN to the appliance and use that as a repository. So right now, today, the Veeam software appliance does not ship with the iSCSI initiator because it requires root access on the appliance. So you kind of lose that ability to be secure by default, right? It's another unneeded service that's running on there. So it increases the attack surface. Similarly, now you're introducing more complexity. You've got this LUN that's sitting on a storage array that's outside of your Veeam software appliance. So there's a separate management plane that's going on. Maybe your your storage admin isn't, part of the same team as the backup admin. So there's that division of trust that you might be dealing with. What's to stop one of their credentials from being basically compromised? Then they could drop the LUN and so forth. So a lot of that sort of comes down to we can't really give you that secure by default experience if all of a sudden we're putting in external systems and we're adding unneeded services that are running, especially under root permissions. Now, the second component to this is folks will say, well, we need it for the storage integrations that Veeam is well known for. Well, there's good news there. The Veeam infrastructure appliance, you can actually leverage iSCSI and NVMe over IP with this as well. So there is a capability there for the storage integrations if you are leveraging that. So you're not out of luck there. Tyler, anything else on this topic?
You kind of hit the nail on the head there. So for your storage integrations, you're going to need a couple proxies anyways for that. Generally going to need them for your larger environments. So you can just set that up. It's a special setting within when you're installing that Veeam infrastructure appliance with added iSCSI support. So just walk through those steps. It help center covers it really cleanly here for you. But we had a quick news story and it was super fascinating to both Matt and I. So we want to bring it up really fast to talk about threats in the threats out there in the that you might see in your ecosystem, and they're not always external threats. So the one we found here was, with this waste management company, where an insider, a former IT guy, a little disgruntled, perhaps he got let go, decided to try to get back into the environment and then start wreaking havoc. So he didn't delete the data, he didn't encrypt the data, but he did decide to go ahead and change the passwords for like everybody in the organization by running a couple PowerShell scripts, which I thought was a clever way to do that. But Matt, what could people do to protect against this kind of threat?
Yeah, so you kind of hinted at that. What stood out to me about this story is it's not your traditional somebody broke in, hacked in, deleted backups, encrypted backups, took down services in the traditional manner. It's more so they went in there, they wreaked havoc by essentially locking everyone out of their account. So it's not your traditional cyber attack. Now, a lot of folks will probably say, well, you know what, just roll back your Active Directory, right? Hopefully you've got a good backup of Active Directory to roll back to, and that will reset everyone's passwords to what they were. So, I mean, that kind of has its own issues, especially if you're in a larger environment where you have to do the whole authoritative restore and all that sort of stuff. And who knows? We know it says a large number of accounts were affected. We don't know if that was every account. So maybe you don't necessarily want to roll everything back. Now, the other aspect to this is in this day and age, lots of organizations are using, external identity providers. Entra ID is probably one of the most common, most prominent ones out there, just because of the footprint that Microsoft has. So then you start entering the conversation of, okay, so if we had a backup for Entra ID, how would this be different than if we just had a backup for Active Directory? And this is where things start to get really interesting. So, we're talking about Veeam here. So for example, the Veeam Entra ID backup capabilities that we have, we can actually go in there and look at the metadata to see exactly what's changed and when it changed. So that'll really let you give, that granular inspection that you're looking for. Like, are you sure it was just the passwords that were changed? Maybe they started adding people to groups or removing people from groups that they should or should not be part of. But then we would commonly hear the question, but if I'm backing up Active Directory, can't I just replicate those changes back up to Entra ID? So the answer to that is you can, but not everything exists in both locations. A great example would be if you're leveraging Microsoft 365, there's an attribute in there that tells you what license does this person have assigned to them. That exists in Entra ID. Veeam backs that up and protects that today. There isn't really an on-prem equivalent to that. So if you find yourself restoring, in this case, I think it was 2,500 users, you might still find yourself actually having to reassign all those licenses, which just sounds like an absolute nightmare to me. So, Tyler, any other thoughts on that?
I think you hit the nail on the head, and just really making sure having that comparison between what was done, what changed, and your production environment is super helpful to try to mitigate and recover from these kind of attacks. So I don't think we need to belabor this because I think we're going long already. We have so much more we want to show you. So why don't we bring up a blog from a good friend of ours, Zane Allen. He's written a blog here on Veeam version 13 here. Matt, I know you looked at this blog and I looked at this blog, and I think it's made the rounds around, and it was a super interesting blog because he covers a lot of, the new features of V13. What are your thoughts on this blog itself?
Yeah, so we'll have to do a few quick hits here on it, but I think the takeaway for this blog is if you haven't started dabbling with V13 yet, and you're not quite sure if you're ready to install it, download it, all that, take a look at Zane's blog. He highlighted some fantastic capabilities in here, and more so the why should you care, why it matters, what the actual practical implications are of this. So tons and tons of great stuff in here. Now, shifting gears a little bit, quick shout out to Michael Cade, part of the product strategy team here at Veeam. He just released a new version of his Collect tool. If you're not familiar with this, it's a great way to go out across your various environments and platforms to start pulling down information about what is actually running in there. Is it a matter of trying to pull down what VMs you're running? Are there snapshots in the environment? Works across VMs, containers, cloud tools, all of that sort of stuff. So there's tremendous breadth of detail that you can pull from this. And the last one that we wanted to highlight is, once again, from near and dear to our heart, we got great tool here from Jorge de la Cruz, PM here at Veeam. He identified this problem that he was faced with in his lab, which really comes down to local account password rotation. So we need to stress this is not an official Veeam supported tool, but if you find yourself in a situation where you're trying to manage local account passwords across your Veeam appliances, take a look at this. Use at your own risk. It might be a good use case, especially for larger lab environments that you have. But we wanted to give shout out to Jorge for a fantastic tool. In fact, he was on our last episode of Between Two Geese. So, glad that we could give a shout out to a new release that he has.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. And I like this one because if you are trying to manage a bunch of different Veeam software appliances with their desystig guidelines that require you to change that password every 60 days, you might run into a challenge where you have a ton of different environments to update all at once. So it's a great tool. I loved it. I want to show it off. And again, we want to stress that even with Michael Cade's tool or with Jorge de la Cruz, this isn't a Veeam officially supported tool. They are community driven. So go back and give Jorge a shout out, give Michael a shout out, and let them know how you appreciate their tools.
Now, I do want to address one last question. It's coming in here right as we're wrapping up from LinkedIn from Mike. So the question is, many organizations struggle with tool sprawl and the resulting alert fatigue. That is real. I absolutely agree with that. So how does Veeam Data Platform integrate with existing SIEM and SOAR platforms? We do. We do a lot there. And I'll try to give a concise answer in as short of a time as I can due to the time constraints here because we're running long. But yes, we offer specific integrations. For example, we got offerings with Palo Alto, we've got offerings with CrowdStrike, Microsoft Sentinel just launched. So these are all solutions available in their own marketplaces. But we also have the ability to send data just over a syslog format to really any SIEM or SOAR that accepts syslog. We've got help center documents that will help you identify what those events are, what they mean, which ones you should care about. So the short answer that I will give for this is it really comes down to, yes, we have tons of ways to feed that data into your overarching SIEM SOAR solution. Depending on what that solution is, we may have integrations that were developed specifically for it. For example, Splunk is another one. You could go there and download the Splunk app and get all those pre-built dashboards. But if it's one that we don't have an integration for yet, if you think that'd be a good use case, reach out to the Veeam team that you have, whether it's your account rep, your SE, maybe it's part of the R&D forums, provide that use case. And B, for the interim, you absolutely can send that data out over syslog today. So thanks for that question, Mike. That is a great question. Glad that we sneaked that in right before we're wrapping up here. So just quick little bit of housekeeping. A reminder, next week there will be no Tech Bites episode. All our friends south of the border, we hope that you enjoy a happy and delicious U.S. Thanksgiving. Tyler, anything else to add as we wrap this up?
Yeah, absolutely. You can seek us out on social media. Find Matt, find myself on LinkedIn. We're both on that LinkedIn there. And we also have our presence on, X and Blue Sky and the rest. So find us there. I'm not going to give you the handles because I'm going to stumble over giving them out. But, find us on LinkedIn, find us on the different social medias, and let us know what you think and let us know what you want to see on the next episode of Tech Bites Takeover. Matt, why don't you wrap us up, close it off?
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. We appreciate all the interaction. We do go through each and every comment. So questions, comments, feedback, what do you want to see more of? What would you like to see less of? Feel free to send it, whether it's through LinkedIn, through X. Reach out to us, as Tyler mentioned, on LinkedIn, and we're more than happy to have that conversation. So thanks all. Hope everyone has a great day.
Take care.